It's kind of a mindset of what motivates people. And the core idea I took away from this, Clark, was modern organizations are not designed to bring out human greatness. They're designed to produce replaceable people.
Here's the deal. Sales isn't about pushing harder, talking faster, or flooding inboxes. That's noise, not strategy. Real business development? It's about presence, precision, and knowing exactly how the room feels before you open your mouth. Jake Stahl, author of Own the Room, How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected, has spent over 30 years training teams across 6 countries and 47 states, teaching solopreneurs how to turn conversations into conversion, known as the mind mechanic. People who have been trained by him say he has the uncanny ability to break down human behavior and rebuild it into real, repeatable influence. This is where communication becomes your unfair advantage. Welcome to Own the Room with Jake Stahl.
Everyone, welcome back to Own the Room. It's hard to think of a time I was more excited to talk to someone. I'm bringing to you today Clark Aldrich. He's an award-winning designer and author of the book Unschooling Rules and Short Sims. He's recognized by Fortune and CNN as one of the world's leading voices in experiential learning. But probably more importantly, he's a friend, a colleague, and someone I've known for a long time. Clark, I am so honored to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Jake. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
So, Clark, you've got some exciting things going on. You've got a book heading your way. We're not sure the release date yet. And you've got something really cool coming out that I think is going to be huge for business owners and leaders. And I would love to focus on that. You have something coming out, Clark, called Socratic Cards. So tell us about that.
So Socratic Cards are the result of some very successful businesses and their own internal processes for developing leaders and developing communities. And so Socratic Cards is, you buy them like a deck of cards, like you might buy Cards Against Humanity. It's sort of a fun set of cards. And the cards have 3 parts to it. The top part of each card is a Socratic question. And what we've seen organizations do very successfully is start asking Socratic questions on a regular basis of each other, say at a staff meeting. Most people love Socratic questions. Socratic questions are a lot of fun to bat around. And I'll give you a few examples, but they're actually kind of hard to come up with. So Socratic Cards gives anyone a set of questions. So you might want to start a staff meeting, for example, asking your community, in life, does fun lead to success or does success lead to fun?
Oh.
Let's talk about that. And actually it has huge implications on how you structure your work. Or another question you might ask your group is, do failures haunt you? Let's talk about that. And so, or another one, you're applying for a dream job. Would you rather be an average worker from a brilliant group or a brilliant worker from an average group?
Wow, those are great.
And so, it's a bunch of, it's literally 100 of those questions that are fun and interesting and get people talking. They're not leading questions. They're not, there's no right answer. They're deliberately open-ended and non-coercive.
So, Clark, let's take a step back for a second.
Yeah,
what is the definition of a Socratic question? Because I know the term, but I'd love to hear what your definition of Socratic question is.
Sure. And so there's sort of a general Socratic question definition, and then there's sort of the one that I'm using here, which is a slightly narrowing of it. So Socratic question is, I'm going to ask you, instead of giving you information, instead of telling you to do something, I might ask you an interesting question. So I might say to you, hey, you're at an airport, you're hungry. What do you get to eat? Do you want to get, a donut or a bag of peanuts? And this, it's a good question, but there's sort of an implied right answer to that. And so the idea of a Socratic question is, rather than say, hey, you should be eating peanuts, give you options and make you think about things. And then often enough times you'll come to the right conclusion. So on one hand, that's a very good Socratic question. It's also a bit coercive. And so all of these Socratic questions that I've designed for these Socratic cards are a couple of things. A, they're non-coercive. There is no right answer. So, it's a really, they're good questions and they're interesting questions. They have real life implications, but they're non-coercive. I'm not asking you these questions saying, "Oh, I've got the right answer in my back pocket." Truly, I want you to think about it. And again, it's more fun to think about it as a group. Another thing which is a little different than other Socratic questions is it's an A-B question. Most of the Socratic card questions, the top questions, are A-B questions. And the reason that is true is that adds a lot of energy to a room. So if you are bringing it up with, say, you're, at a staff meeting, or if you're a college professor, you're starting off every single lecture with a Socratic question for the group in order to get them engaged, in order to get them heard, in order to get them leaning forward, not leaning back. An A/B question actually is a lot more energizing because people can debate about it and they're sure of what each other is saying.
Got it. So this is really designed for leaders in an organization, or ways for you to kind of step up your game in breaking the ice with somebody you may not know,
Mhm.
or for facilitating a group discussion for somebody who's like a trainer or a leader or a public speaker.
Yeah, and the top questions are also just sort of fun. If you are, we've we've started introducing these cards in a formal way in groups, and a lot of people bring them home and talk about them with their friends and families. So it's almost, like the Cards Against Humanity series. It's actually fun to ask these questions of each other, as after dinner to, start thinking about really big issues. So they're actually in and of themselves, they're fun regardless of the use, and they're great for corporations and organizations, but they're also great sort of, kicking around at night with friends.
So, Clark, this is interesting because I've always known you as the father of simulation training.
Mhm.
I would argue that you are the absolute leader in that area and developing sims for training people.
Mhm.
Seems to be kind of a different path for you. So,
It's
what led you to the Socratic cards?
well, it's the same challenge of saying how do you grow people without talking at them? It's the
Gotcha.
same fundamental questions. Short sims are necessary to make e-learning work. E-learning does not work without something like short sims for interactivity, for visual fun, for again learning by doing. So short sims are absolutely necessary for any kind of e-learning to actually work and not be dreadfully dull. But it's a foundational technology. Short sims, if there's a pyramid there, short sims are at the bottom. Socratic cards are at the top because so there's two other features of Socratic cards that are worth mentioning. So the
Okay.
top question is a fun, bouncy, high energy question. It gets people going and thinking. There's two more parts to the cards, which is a more tactical question and then a challenge. So each of the Socratic cards has a challenge at the bottom. So if, for example, do failures haunt you, then the challenge is, have a fail Friday activity this week where everyone sits around and talks about funny or epic fails they had in the past and what they have learned from it. So, here's an activity you can do to start internalizing your failures. Um, you know, in the, find two examples of world-class work of others for your next project to use as an example, whatever. So each of these cards also has very specific challenges to them, learning by doing. And so, if you want to evolve yourself, if you want to grow as a person, the Socratic questions at the top are a lot of fun, but the challenges down below get a lot more meaty and a lot more interesting. So that becomes the learning by doing, and it's learning by doing in the real world, not in a simulation, which is great, but you can only go so far in a simulation.
This sounds like a great way to break the conditioning of a group. So, they come in thinking they're going to sit there and get some rote training and they're going to have to listen to a lecture. And this seems like it really opens things up in the beginning of a training session or a public talk or whatever, to get people out of the mindset of, great, now I'm going to have to listen for 40 minutes while somebody drones on.
I hate talking at people so much. I can't tell you. I hate, especially when I'm doing like a conference presentation on short sims, where literally I'm talking at people for an hour in order to convince them interactivity is good. So to some degree, I'm refusing to do that anymore. I was asked to join a class, a master's level class on simulation design, and I was giving my session on short sims. And literally, I spent the entire time asking the group questions. Should a short sim, should a sim be long or short? Should a sim, what is the more important question when researching a short sim? Is it to find out where things go wrong or find out where things go right? Just and literally asking the community questions and letting all those debates come out rather than me talking at them. And it was a lot more effective and I think a lot more fun. So, the question is, how do we get away from this talking at people? And then again, how do we make this stuff doable? So it's on one hand, we can listen and talk all day long, but ultimately it's by doing things that we actually make progress on the journeys that we're on.
So, Clark, who was this designed for? When you created this deck, who was the ICP that you were thinking about to be your primary buyer? Or was it a larger audience, not just a specific group?
It's a very large audience, but the very specific one right now is if you're a corporate manager and you want to develop your leadership skills and you want to develop the leadership skills of the people in your community. It's an absolutely perfect tool to raise your game, raise the interactivity of your community, and then also give your own community a bunch of challenges. And so the challenges are in the categories of using time well, achieving excellence, finding your calling, mental models, reducing drama, building good habits, increasing the energy of your community, all these things, all these things that a good leader wants to do. So it's a very simple tool for a leader, any leader, to greatly empower the interactivity, the back and forth, the fun, the energy, the excellence of their community. And then the final part that's really cool about Socratic Cards, which is based on Alcoholics Anonymous, which is an incredibly
Got 12
effective model.
steps.
Well, exactly. It is a path. 12 steps is a path, and you go into Alcoholics Anonymous, and there are 12. And the 12-step process, and it gets you from point A to point B. We actually have a 4-step process in short sims. I'm so sorry, in Socratic Cards. And the first step is do a couple of easy activities, do a couple of easy challenges, whichever ones sound fun to you and sound possible to you. And then do 2 harder challenges, level 2 challenges. And for those, have a mentor sign off on them. Have a mentor, look at the work that you did and sign off on it. The third step is do a couple of level 3 challenges, the ones that you find interesting. And again, have a mentor sign off on it. But the
Right.
fourth step is to become a mentor yourself and sign off on other people's work. So we've completed the cycle where you go from doing some interesting activities with sign off to being the person who signs off on them. So that effect, that transformation shifts you from focusing on yourself to focusing on others. It gives you a way of talking to other people and asking for help. And then, so that's how you really build, and it's a viral tool. It grows on its own in organizations. And that's how you get a culture of of real open communication and mentoring.
So I could see this as a great tool for like a consultant who goes into a company and they want to get to know their group and they want to get interactivity. So even if you're not necessarily in a corporation, if you're a solopreneur or a fractional, I could see the value of this in going into a new company and just establishing yourself as someone who likes to think and get group involvement.
You can do nothing but ask one Socratic question, the top question, at the beginning of every meeting. And you're going to see a transformation of people from knowing each other better to looking forward to the meetings, to looking forward to the debates, to once you have a good Socratic discussion, the entire rest of the meeting, you're pumped up, you're talking, you're leaning forward, you're chatting. So participation goes through the roof when you start off, with investing 5 minutes in a good Socratic discussion.
That is great. Now, you said there was a group about reducing drama. Did I hear that right when you were going through that?
Yeah, and that's one of the core things of any good community is the ability to not have bad drama. I mean, some drama is good, but I think drama is a huge drain. When some people become the work instead of doing the work, is hugely problematic. You do need you do need some rules to have good expectations. Another way of saying that is, if everyone else in the room is playing chess and you want to play poker,
Yeah.
you're not going to be a good fit. And so trying to figure out how to get that poker player either wanting to play chess or, creating a separate poker club or something. But, you have these people who are truly not wanting to play the same game as everyone else. and that does cause a problem, or different expectations. And so some people don't mind being 20 minutes late for a meeting, other people want to be there 5 minutes early. That's a problem, and it's worth getting rid of that drama because it's not helpful.
This strikes me as something that you could do to be introspective yourself. It seems to me that other than taking it into a workplace or community, you could almost pull one this a day yourself. The one that you said, "Do past failures haunt you?" That's been like an earwig for me since you said it. I'm thinking through, do they? I'm not sure.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool the way you can use this from an introspective point of view as well.
Yeah, and so sort of the AA model, I probably shouldn't call it that, but the mentor path model, involves really getting, of both looking at these cards, giving yourself challenges, maybe working with other people to get these challenges done, asking other people to sign off on them, to say, hey, I want to show you what I did, which gets great conversations going. And then again, ultimately it twists until you become the mentor yourself, checking off other people's work. So it's an incredibly good self tool to give yourself little challenges. It's fun simply to ask yourself the questions. And so if you get the card decks and do nothing but flip through them, and frankly, I've already seen some people give them to grandkids or kids or something, of saying, here's, a stocking stuffer, here's something to just think about life, think about these sort of options that you have in life, and maybe do a challenge or two if you're bored, kind of thing. So there's no question that's a really nice way to do it. It gets even more powerful though when you have a community doing it together and checking each other's work and helping each other grow. And that's sort of the real. I don't know if you ever saw the show Ted Lasso.
Oh yeah, love Ted Lasso.
Yeah, so Ted Lasso is obviously based on John Wooden's work, the famous basketball coach, and it's really this notion of saying, how do we use work as a canvas for becoming better people? How do we use, where we believe obviously Ted Lasso's big word there, believe, but we believe that if we work on each other and if we become the best people we can be, almost the work takes care of itself. We use the work as our backboard. We use we want to be excellent in our work, but we also want to be growing. Every day we want to be better off than we were the day before. Every week that goes by, we want to be closer and have made progress on the heroic journeys that matter most to us. And ultimately, organizations themselves are on heroic journeys. Is obviously the Joseph Campbell concept of heroic journey. And so part of, I think, the big aha is saying, every good organization is itself on a heroic journey, but it makes progress. Organizations make progress on their big journeys if and only if their employees are also making progress on their journeys. And so it's very recursive. And so if you look at the world that way, as we are all on a series of heroic journeys, then again, that's sort of the Ted Lasso view of organizations, that everyone needs to grow together or basically no one grows.
So you've mentioned heroic journey a couple of times here. So I would be remiss if we didn't sidetrack to the book that you have coming out soon, which is How to Matter: 46 Rules for a Hero-Driven Life. And Clark, I can't thank you enough for sending me the advanced copy of this, because I was blown away. This is so cool. Being a comic book fan, the word hero always resonates well with me and triggers great memories. But I was
I actually
fascinated
worked
by
hard not to put in more comic book references, but I certainly, I wanted, there's more than a few that I wanted to put in there.
Yeah, I love it. And the core idea is fascinating to me. And I think this is something that our solopreneurs and entrepreneurs can take in, because it's kind of a mindset of what motivates people. And the core idea I took away from this, Clark, was modern organizations are not designed to bring out human greatness. They're designed to produce replaceable people. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of jobs in corporations, probably around 60 or 70% now, are meant to be held by what I'll call easily replaceable employees. So there's increased automation in the hiring process. There's increased automation in the training process. There's increased automation in the managing process, and ultimately increased automation in the firing process. And that is on the way to automation, full stop, of creating these easily replaceable employees. And it's very, it's very sobering walking into a job knowing that you are an easily replaceable employee. Now, at the same time, most organizations have the opposite of that, which is, let's call them heroic tribes or heroic communities or whatever. And these are the communities that actually do matter in an organization. These are the communities that actually do create the environment. And most organizations have heroic tribes or heroic communities at the senior leadership model. If you have a bunch of senior leaders, the executive vice presidents, the CTO, CLO, CTO, well, not CLO, chief information officer, and then the chief marketing person, the executive vice president of marketing, whatever you want to call it, the CEO, the whatever. These people are organized heroically. They're a peer-to-peer group. They learn from each other. They grow together. They matter every day. Their decisions matter, and they are growing every single day. These people are growing and becoming more powerful. They are on journeys, and they know it. But sometimes, or most of the time in organizations, they also have other heroic tribes. Some marketing people are self-organized and, they're making themselves more powerful every day by making real choices. Some product development teams are heroic. Again, some sales teams are heroically organized. So, probably whatever the number is, 30, 40% of organizations are organized heroically. And most organizations treat this kind of heroic growth as a scarcity, as something that, has to be organized, has to be protected, and only a few people get to grow and everyone else has to be replaceable. And I think this is a guide for, for anyone to say, here's how I'm going to find meaning and purpose in work, and here's how I'm going to organize our group heroically. So at the same time, tops down, there's going to be a scarcity mentality when it comes to heroically organized groups. Groups themselves can revolt against that and say, no, we want to become more heroic. We want to organize ourselves. And again, I would argue the value of most organizations comes completely from their heroes, not from everyone else. And so, I hope the transformation this book results is saying, let's spread the heroic. Let's have 70% of our organizations be heroic tribes, not just 10%. And I think that's the transformation that we could see. And frankly, those organizations will do better.
A lot of people who listen to this podcast would agree with this. They were somehow forced out, or they left because they weren't being fulfilled. And, they suffered at the hands of perhaps some of these hero tribes. The thing I found intriguing, Clark, was you have three big movements in the book. And the first one you talk about is you're on a hero's journey, whether you admit it or not. So talk a little bit about that piece. Because I always like to think of myself as a hero, and your book validates that. So I was thrilled about that. But talk a little bit about that piece.
We all have this tug. We all have this, reason we are here, this raison d'etre. We have this thing that makes us do things. And so, when we were younger, we had this big vision of what we wanted to do when we grew up and the kind of perfect job we'd have. And then we sort of made compromises along the way. But in the heroic journey, the big calling is always there. It's always, I really want to make a movie. I really want to make a comic book. I really want to get good at this. I really want to, work with other people. And so I think there's always this tug of the journey. And so, you're always kind of on this journey, whether or not you're making progress or not is a different issue. At the same time, when you complete a journey, you're actually, life presents you with new journeys. It's not a matter of like saying, oh, good, I did this thing. Now I'm done.
I'm done.
I can die now, or I can now become, whatever. No, I mean, I think
Right.
you complete a journey, you grow, you learn. And I'm going to argue that probably, anyone who is smart because they have completed heroes' journeys, not just one, but multiple ones. The process that we really learn something, not by sitting in the classroom, but by completing journeys. And I would argue when you look at some of the most successful people in the world, they have completed a lot of journeys. I mean, the reason they are successful, the reason they are as competent as they are, is because they have completed a lot more journeys than I have.
Yeah.
And so it's every time your calling does not sit still. Your calling moves and shifts as you complete the journey that you're currently on. It feels good. It also feels a little incomplete. And then you sort of, then you're seeing new, higher level, more wise, more interesting journeys that open up in front of you. And so, and again, a lot of times we do crazy, stupid things that, we make decisions that our parents don't understand, or our kids don't understand, or our spouse don't understand, or our coworkers don't understand. We take opportunities, we don't take opportunities, whatever. And most of the time, that kind of stupidity that we demonstrate every day is because, there's some hidden journey tugging at us that we are really, really trying to figure out how to tack into.
So, and Clark, I love this because I think I can feel that as well. And I think everybody who listens to this podcast can feel that. They've wanted to start their own business, they wanted to become their own boss, they've wanted to go out and do things on their own.
Live life on their own terms.
Right. The thing that struck me, I think, the most about the second movement that you had in the book, which was heroes don't win alone, they build tribes. You said peer learning is more powerful than authority-based learning. And as a group of entrepreneurs, I think we all talk to each other peer to peer, but I was intrigued by that. What do you mean that peer to peer is more powerful than authority-based?
We learn from our peers, and when we are with people, we are learning a lot faster than when we are learning from Boston. So part of that is a dig at traditional schools of saying, you sit in a classroom and the teacher talks at you, or you sit in a conference and someone talks at you, like me. And worst case, I worry this podcast, but I mean that's it's great if you're for what it is, but it's a way of learning that's fairly inefficient even when you want to do it. You learn a lot from when you're working with people on a team. That's when your learning kicks up hugely. So part of that, as you say, is a community, and I think communities are absolutely awesome. And by the way, communities need a shared, everyone get together and say, wow, Clark was really smart, or wow, Clark was a real dork, or whatever. But again, you have a shared artifact, which actually is hugely important for community building. But, everything I say, everything you say, in this kind of tops down format is only valuable when people can chew on it, argue it, disagree with it, agree with it, but then turn it into practice. Okay, here's how I'm going to do stuff based on what I heard, or here's how I'm going to do stuff despite what I heard, kind of thing. But that's where it's the peer-to-peer that when you're working with a group, is when you really learn. Part of what you learn is, who am I? Am I the funny one? Am I the smart one? Am I the good-looking one? No, in my case, but
I'm all those.
Oh yeah, well, sure. So you have an embarrassment of riches here, and I have a paucity, but a huge part of it is, defining your role. And obviously, you ask each other for help. Hey, how do you do this? And so that's where an online community works really well. But you learn very little from someone who's sort of talking at you.
I will say, Clark, the thing that probably hit home most to me about the book is, you've heard of the book or probably read it, The Go-Giver.
Sure.
This series by Bob Berg and his co-author. And I think that's becoming a larger movement, is helping others succeed or helping other people as a way to get what you're looking for out of life. And in your third section, Everyone Grows or No One Does, you posit the fact that helping others progress accelerates your own growth, and that great leaders ask great questions, not give great answers. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's becoming a prevailing theme right now about giving, and leadership posturing is curiosity. That's the most powerful attribute.
Right. And so that goes back to the Socratic question, the Socratic Cards, which is, great leaders ask great questions. They don't have an agenda. They're truly curious. They have a reporter's curiosity. They're not trying to coerce people. They really, really want to know. And so again, that's the essence of the Socratic Cards, is asking and training leaders to ask great questions and then shut up and listen to the answers, because they are fascinating. So everyone grows or no one grows. If you're with a group of people, well, first of all, if you are stuck on your journey, and by the way, we're all stuck a lot on our journeys. We're often saying, oh, frig, I don't really know what to do. I'm quite a bit dissatisfied. I have a vision out there, but it seems impossible to get to. I don't know what to do. Frankly, the best thing to do is help someone else. Listen to someone else, help them on their journey. And if you help other people on their journey, you will make progress, guaranteed 100% of the time. You will make progress on your journey. It will open up and unlock things. So even if you're just a selfish SOB, you're still going to have you're incredibly motivated to help other people on their journey. It's how you grow. And then there's sort of these, zooming out from that, your entire community grows or doesn't grow. You can't do much growth without your community. So if it's, 10 people in your team, you're all growing, or most people are growing, or frankly, no one's growing, or those who are growing are very sub-optimized. So growing itself is a very group effort. But then ultimately, you really, and this gets back to Tocqueville's observations of democracy in America, but you do want to be not only part of one tribe that's growing, but you want to be part of multiple tribes that's growing, and you want to be part of different tribes. So if a bunch of people, if you want to be heroic, if you want people to think that you're a hero, you want people to think how great you are, the easiest way to do that is only be part of one tribe and then start parroting all the applause lines of the tribe. And we've seen that today in political circles, in cultural circles. We've seen that in academic circles, whatever. So that's the easiest way to pretend that you're a hero. In fact, you're not. You're often just a jerk. But the real trick is to say, if you really want to be a hero, you want to join multiple tribes that are non-overlapping. And that's when, it's only when you sort of do that, then you start really figuring out what true heroic behavior is like, not just performative heroic behavior. And so that's the real trick. And that's sort of, ultimately when you read a comic book about a hero, as I do as well, or not as much as I like to anymore, but it's still that notion of, the real push to be a hero is to help everyone, is to help everyone in your community. And that's how, you grow, by not just helping your immediate community, but sort of all the overlapping communities as well. And also that notion of cross-training. Again, if you look at most super successful people, they have a fair degree of cross-training in their background, either over years or at any one time. And so that's the other part of the everyone grows sort of mantra.
So, Clark, it sounds like the deck and the book complement each other nicely. And I believe you said the deck is due out first and the book's date is still up in the air as to when it's being released?
That is correct. So the deck will be on socraticcards.com. The deck will be available on February 1st. And then the book hopefully will be not too far after that.
Cool. We'll put that in the speaker notes so people can get to it. Are you going to be selling it through any other venues like Amazon, or will it strictly be available only through that website?
Initially only through socraticcards.com, and then eventually we'll expand. I don't, and more cards are on the way. I want to build Socratic Cards for families. I want to build Socratic Cards for nonprofit groups. I want to build Socratic Cards for other communities as well. So right now it's sort of a Socratic Cards for businesses and organizations. Probably the sweet spot is sort of the 25 to 35-year-olds. It also is good for party game. Certainly the top of the questions is good for being with friends and stuff. So it's sort of that's sort of the target audience.
That's fantastic. I love this because when I work with an organization, the one thing they're often missing is Socratic questions. And
Socratic questions are so much fun. Socratic questions are highly, highly energizing. The hardest part about them is coming up with good ones.
Right.
So let me take care of that. And then again, hopefully you'll both use them, but also come up with your own after you get the hang of it. Because once people see the power of Socratic questions, there's almost no going back.
So just as we wind up the show, Clark, would you share a couple of other Socratic questions for people to chew on and kind of give them a flavor for why they should buy the deck? And
absolutely. And by the way, I have
after the show.
Sure. Here are some examples from the website. So in life, does fun lead to success, or does success lead to fun? Which is the high level question. The tactical one is underneath that, which should be more celebrated by a community, a group's achievement, or an individual's birthday. And then the challenge there is a medium one: host 2 small celebrations or 1 big one for your community. Here's another Socratic question. You are a CEO of a large public company. Do you take a public stand on a political issue you care deeply about? And then sort of the middle question in that card is, does a courageous person make for a better work colleague?
Oh, boy, I like all of these.
And the challenge is complete a project with a person whom you believe is courageous. What does it feel like? Another one, again, these are all examples from the Socratic Cards website. To explain something, which do you use? The simplest explanation that fits the facts, Occam's razor, or do you show hidden underlying reasons and unintended consequences, complexity theory? And then, so again, good debate, let the debate begin. But then, are you giving a presentation or writing an article in the next 2 weeks? And if so, the challenge is use the opposite approach. Play to your weak hand. To make another question, to make your life better, on which do you focus? A few things that will have the biggest impact, the Pareto principle, or everything a little bit better all the time, marginal gains. And then the middle question there, the tactical question, is what are your weekly tasks that are the most valuable? So if you had to figure out, and then the challenge then is to restructure your work to focus on that 20% of your activities that give you 80% of your value.
It's
So
kind of cool because these feel like cards that reframe the way you think about something.
absolutely, and they're all fun. I mean, they're all they're all kind of you do hear them, or at least I hear them and say, oh, I not only do I want to think about them because I think they matter, but also I want to talk about them with other people. I don't want the burden of this topic, this question by myself. I want to hear what other people are doing and thinking about.
Yeah. Wow. Clark, this is awesome. I am really excited. I'm going to pick up my deck of Socratic cards. I trust being a longtime friend of yours that I'll get the signed deck. So I will look forward to receiving that.
I will get you a deck free off the first batch. It'll be my gift to you.
Thank you. And we're really looking forward to your book, Clark. Again, that's How to Matter 46 Rules for a Hero Driven Life. Clark, thank you for coming on the show. This was a true pleasure. Time has really flown, and we don't talk often enough. So I hope we get to catch up again soon.
I can't wait, Jake. And congratulations on your book. It's a great book. Highly recommended. We all need to read The Room a lot more. I know I do. And so it's really, if you, again, I don't know anyone who does not have to read The Room better than they do. And so it's a great book. It's very helpful. It's easy to read. It's very specific. It's action focused. So, pick up a copy and buy it for a friend too. I think it's that good of a book.
Thanks for checking out Own the Room with Jake Stahl. If you've gotten value from this episode, share it with the solopreneur in your life who wants to know how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected. Review and rate the show wherever you check out podcasts. And grab your copy of Own the Room, How to Communicate to be Seen, Heard, and Respected. We'll catch you next week on Own the Room.